Whittaker Weekly is a 3-episode anime discussion podcast where two brothers discuss a show of their choice. The show can be anything from a current season flop to a decades-old classic. What are they going to talk about next? Who knows? They sure don't. I'm Andrew.
I'm Lee.
And this is Whittaker Weekly. Let's get right into it. All right, so a couple of bits of news. Just yesterday, slime reincarnation, or like that time I got reincarnated as a slime, it has been renewed for season 2.
Fantastic.
Which I'm very excited about, especially after that little bit. It's the last couple of episodes they've been leaving it, but that's more for another story kind of endings,
Right.
like where he recreates the golem. And it's like, and I summoned a demon, and that became quite a thing. But that's another story. And then it cuts to something else. Mm-hmm. And then we've got this flashback with Shizu-san and this demon that she's fighting. But it turns out she's not fighting this demon. She's fighting other demons.
Yes.
And this demon comes in and slaughters everyone but her. And the reason he slaughters everyone but her is because, I don't want to spoil anything, but, you know,
He's found a reason to admire her.
He's found a very good reason to admire her. Mm-hmm.
And so get caught up on Slime if you haven't. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. And we're looking forward to season 2.
We've got one more episode of season 1.
Something you mentioned is that actually, if anybody's ever read the Neverending Story novel, is it the novel that is based on? Every chapter ends with, "But that's another story for another time." Mm-hmm. That's how every chapter ends. And so seeing that happen in Slime, but that's kind of the point, is that stories never end. Yeah, was the whole point of the novel.
There's a bit of news that I forgot to go ahead and cover. I'll go ahead and put it in. I can go ahead and update the doc after we're done recording.
Right.
But the Behemoth, the same guys. I don't know if you've ever played any of their games, but they make hand animated games. They made shoot, I'm forgetting the name, but it's a very, very difficult Alien Hominid. They made Alien Hominid for the PS2.
Okay.
It's a very difficult side scroller where you're an alien and you're fighting Area 51 agents trying to get your freedom. And they also made Castle Crashers, which is a side scroller beat 'em up. And they made a couple other games as well. They just announced today that they are it's their 10th anniversary, and kind of to help celebrate that, they are re-releasing Castle Crashers for the Switch, the PS4, and I think the Xbox One. It's Castle Crashers Remastered. Okay. It's a very fun game. I've already purchased it twice. I got it for the 360 back when I had one, but then I sold my 360. I ended up rebuying it for the PS4 or the PS3. I don't know if I want to buy it again, but it's good that it's available for people who haven't played it yet, because it's a great game.
Okay, then.
And then they've also announced that they're working on their 5th game, whatever their 5th game is going to be.
All right.
And then...
Okay, so a while back, I actually have been to GDC, and so it's kind of fun seeing when they've popped up in the news again. I always wanted to go back. But you've got another news article that is straight from an announcement at GDC this year.
A very long announcement at GDC. Game Developers Conference, for those of you who don't know what GDC is. Google is getting into the gaming business. They are launching Google Stadia. It is a console. It is a gaming system without a console.
Okay.
They are using the Google Cloud and the Google Network to power their games. You will be able to use your tablet, your computer, your TV if you've got the proper Chromecast, or your phone to play the exact same game. You can stop playing on your phone you can play on your phone on your commute home, and then as soon as you get home, you can swap to your Chromecast and keep playing where you left off. In October of last year, they tested this by running Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the newest game in the Assassin's Creed series, streaming it through Chrome and letting people play it.
Oh, wow.
At 1080p, 60 frames per second. And the test went extremely well. They're saying when they launch, they're planning on being able to play up to 4K resolution, 60 frames per second, with surround sound audio. Oh, wow. They didn't say They didn't say any costs. They said that it's that they have you can use any controller that plugs into your computer, which I think is kind of interesting considering they also just announced that the Switch Joy-Cons, you can now pair them with Google Chrome, or you can in the near future.
Oh, wow.
You can use them on Google Chrome.
I have, okay, so I've done game development, and I've done game development with Unity, and I have connected a PlayStation controller via USB port to a PC and developed using button mapping to that. So, you know, I suppose any game controller that uses USB charging can be
any controller that you can plug into your computer, you can go ahead and play. But they also have their own custom one. This controller is designed to be able to connect automatically to YouTube, where you press a button and it starts streaming YouTube automatically for you.
Okay.
There's also the Google Assistant button, where you press a button and you talk to Google to get one of the clips they showed was you press the assistant. Let's say you're playing the latest Tomb Raider, and they showed the latest Tomb Raider game being played, but you're stuck on this puzzle. Usually what players would have to do, they'd pull up their phone, they'd look up a video, and they'd go ahead and scroll through that video until they get to the part where they want to get help from. Hey Google, how do I solve this puzzle? And Google pulls up a YouTube video and shows you exactly where you are in the game and shows you in this video what you need to do to solve the puzzle. And then it lets you go back to the game immediately.
Nice.
Did my phone just talk to me?
Oh, you did.
It's because I did say, hey, Google.
You did. And I was just picturing, So I had a similar problem, actually. So... just remembering, some mean podcasts out there will shout a keyword for like Siri or Google or Alexa or something like that, and try to get people to have things happen to their devices. Something that was happening to me is I was listening to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as narrated by Stephen Fry.
Which is another delight.
And it turns out that the Amazon Echo, one of the settings, you can have it say Alexa, you can have it say Echo, you can have it say Amazon, and a recent addition some years ago was computer. So you could live life like it's Star Trek. And so you could say, computer, do this, play this, or do that. And I was listening to the chapter on deep thought.
Where he's always talking about computers.
Where he's talking about, like, are you not the greatest computer? and so they're comparing computers to deep thought and wondering what, like, we built you to be the greatest. And then he's just very messianically talking about the computer he will design and they will build for him. But throughout that chapter, every time that Stephen Fry uttered the word computer, as I'm listening to it through my Amazon Echo Dot, the Echo stopped and waited to hear what the other instructions were before playing again.
Jeez.
It couldn't tell when it was itself playing it.
Yeah, that's sad. That's kind of sad. But anyways, one more bit of news. Because this is like built together with the YouTube platform. One of the things that you can do is if you have the Strata and the person who's streaming has the Strata, if they're playing a multiplayer game and they've set their options to allow it, you can join them in their game.
Oh, nice.
And play multiplayer with them or against them, depending on what game they're playing. Okay. So
that could be fun.
Yeah, it could be. At the same time, I'm more of a single player kind of guy, so I don't really see myself wanting to play multiplayer with too many people.
Right.
But anyway, it's kind of exciting.
Absolutely.
Seeing what Google's ideas for gaming. And they actually also announced, like, Phil Spencer, someone who used to be pretty high up on, I think it was Xbox, I could be wrong, I'll have to double check. He's the head of Google Strata, and he also announced that today Google has officially formed their own gaming studio. I think it's like Gaming with Strata or something like that. And Jade Raymond, the girl who headed up Assassin's Creed 1 and 2 for Ubisoft, and I shouldn't say girl, woman, she's like, yeah, she's a full-grown woman. Anyway,
the
lady, and she, she's now the head of that studio.
Oh, good for her.
So she was also heading up a studio for EA, but EA, being EA, canceled all the games that studio was making, and she just kind of walked away. So
I don't blame her. I mean, EA is the place where game companies go to die.
Yep.
Just ask Richard Garriott.
Oh, it's not just Richard Garriott. There's a lot of companies that have died under EA because they haven't been able to live up to EA's unreasonable demands.
Their
unreasonable demands caused them to create shortcuts and upset the fan base that had helped build that studio in the first place.
Right. Yeah. Now, what was it? There was we showed you a picture that a meme passed through my Facebook feed featuring the character design of Handsome Jack happening to match really closely to a CEO of EA.
Mm-hmm. Of EA's CEO.
Yeah.
The like Andrew something or other with he looks a lot like Handsome Jack. Also
to the point where it can't be a coincidence.
Also, Mirror's Edge 2, the villain in Mirror's Edge 2, which was made by DICE, if I recall correctly, a company owned by EA, the villain in that also straight up looks like the same guy. Okay.
In fact, he
looks like a supervillain.
A lot of great games seem to adopt EA as the villain of their games, including one that was in the recommendation of the week, either last week or the week before.
Ultima,
the Ultima series. I mean, Ultima 7. The rhetoric that the Guardian utters and some of your quest actually involves defeating the EA logo. Because at the time, the EA logo was a square, a circle, and a triangle over the words Electronic Arts. And the villain had created a cube, sphere, and tetrahedron generators that were destroying the world in certain ways, and you had to go in and
one was causing earthquakes, one was messing with mana, and one was messing with the moon gates, if I recall correctly.
That's right.
Yeah. And I've been replaying that game, but I also got distracted by Skyrim because I've been modding the crap out of Skyrim and just having a lot of fun with it on my new laptop. I just downloaded a mod called The High King of Skyrim, where when you complete it, you are now the High King of Skyrim, and you have complete control over everybody. You can force somebody to join the army for you. You can force somebody to be thrown in prison. You can have them executed. It's just a fun mod to play around with. Anyway,
let's get on to the main thrust of our podcast.
Let's get on with it. It's 3 episodes in. It was my pick this week.
It is.
And I picked Space Battleship Tiramisu. And for some reason, I have the luck of picking shows that have very short episodes.
Yeah. We really ought to be a little more selective before we just pick a show to go.
Yeah. Whatever. Anyway.
Okay.
Space Battleship Tiramisu. The episodes are about 7 minutes long. They're super short. The Earth Union is locked in a massive galactic war. Aboard the space battleship Tiramisu, ace pilot Subaru Ichinose carries the fate of humanity on his shoulders. Life for Subaru is tough, but nothing relieves tension quite like launching an all-out food-based assault on his own face. Snug as a bug in a rug, Subaru soothingly unwinds in his personal mecha Durandal F as bliss overtakes him.
Okay.
It's not so much food, it's that his cockpit is his sanctuary, we should probably say.
It's like his one of the first okay. So here's the difference between whether you watch this show on Verve or on Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll will apparently send you right into episode 1, but Verve's episode selection starts with 3 specialty episodes that aren't listed in the standard run-through that are bonus material. And I didn't know this. I just jumped in right into the first one on Verve. You jumped in the first one on Crunchyroll. And so I ended up watching 3 more episodes than you that had different content. And so I'm going to have to rely on you to get us through these. And I will kind of elaborate on things that happen to be in these special episodes. Because the content of these episodes are actually additional side story material. The things that happen from other people's point of view during episodes. Like the first episode is from the point of view of a character that interacts with the main character Subaru throughout episodes 1 and 2. Or 2 and 3.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. So the episode starts off, there are enemies approaching, but he has about 120 seconds before his mech launches, and he says to himself, all right, that gives me just enough time to eat one. And he goes down. And like before then, we don't really see anything.
But he has
he's in his cockpit.
Modern bento box in a modern supermarket bento box in a super sci-fi
It's not quite a bento. A bento is multiple courses. This is just something that you would buy, like
it's a supermarket.
Yeah, it's or a convenience store. Like it's a deep fried skewers is what he has. He's got like
deep fried pork skewers. Is what
tonkatsu skewers is what he has.
So it's basically the Japanese equivalent of a corn dog.
Yeah. But a lot tastier than a corn dog. But anyways, he's got this super advanced mech. It's obviously set in space, and then he's like, I'm gonna have one, and he goes down, and there is a plastic package with 3 pieces, and it's a see-through plastic container, with 3 pieces of tonkatsu skewers, over lettuce.
Yeah,
held together
shredded cabbage, yes.
Shredded cabbage held together with a rubber band. Yeah. And he takes off the rubber band and he grabs one, and I'm just like, okay, so that already sets the precedent for the show that this is just going to be ridiculous, because why are we seeing a modern day, as in our modern day level of convenience store thing for this tonkatsu, when the rest of it is so super sci-fi?
Yep.
And we see why later on. But anyway, he then is about to eat it, and he's like, wait, no, I almost forgot. I need the sauce. And he pulls out this container, and he's bringing the two together very, very slowly.
Now he actually references a scene that happens in one of the preview episodes before, is that he was in a cafeteria scene eating one of those, and he dipped and enjoyed it, and he was about to double dip when a co-pilot grabs his arm and says, "There is no double dipping."
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's not the co-pilot. It's the other pilot, whatever his name is.
Another pilot.
Volger. I think it was Volger.
It wasn't Volger. It was because Volger is the blonde who's a little bit All Might-ish in terms of his.
He's beefy.
He's beefy, blonde, and robust. But the person who stopped him is wiry, gray, and kind of vile looking. And so I haven't seen much of him.
Yeah, he's not in episodes 1 through 6.
No.
But no, that's right. He does say to himself, and in here I can go ahead and double dip as much as I want. No one can stop me because I'm in my own personal sanctuary, my cockpit.
And so he has a modern day water bottle with a little bit of soy sauce that's floating around in the dead center of it. And he opens it up and tries to dip into the water bottle.
Pretty sure it's tonkatsu sauce. But anyways, yeah.
It's a brown sauce.
It's a brown sauce.
For dipping.
Just you need to try tonkatsu sauce sometimes. It's kind of a sweet, tangy barbecue sauce. It's nice.
You can take me someplace that has it.
Okay. Anyway, he he dips it in.
However, there's a scale difference between the circumference of his deep fried pork ring and the hole that's the opening of the water bottle.
If he was anywhere near as smart as they're trying to make him out to be, he would have just taken the sauce and squeezed it out a little bit on top of it.
Yes.
But he puts the skewer into the bottle, and then all of the fried bread, the crust of the tonkatsu, flies off and goes everywhere.
Now, when we were kids, our parents would have a recipe for baked breaded chicken that usually used something like cornflakes or something like that. So it had a texture to it. That's kind of what this is. Like when I described a corn dog is generally smooth and just breaded around it, but this one has got flake and
it's tonkatsu.
Tonkatsu. So this, it's just crunching as he's trying to dip it in here. And he's in a 0G cockpit. And so there are now crumbs floating everywhere in this cockpit. And he's suddenly realizing the dilemma he's created for himself while the countdown for launch is continuing.
And he makes things worse by knocking over by knocking over the container with the other two, and now there's lettuce or shredded cabbage everywhere as well.
And it's just floating all over the cockpit, and now he has to battle in this situation.
See, so the way you make tonkatsus, you take the pork, you put it in, you dip it, you put it in flour, you then put it over egg, and then you dip it in breadcrumbs. So it's fried breadcrumbs on top of it. Is what it is. But anyway, which is why it gets everywhere in the cockpit. And he...
It is literally the least It has got to be one of the least sanitary things you could possibly eat in what's supposed to be a sterile environment.
It's supposed to be a sterile environment, and like just think about all that food that could get into the electronics and just screw things up so badly.
It reminds me of that scene in Like a Surgeon, where Weird Al is performing surgery and then leans over with a really drippy sandwich.
And it just goes into the...
It's like coleslaw or something is dripping out of the sandwich. You're like, this isn't supposed to happen.
Nope.
This is a clean room.
Mm-hmm. So, the cockpit's supposed to be a clean room as well.
Yes.
But it's now just got his food, his mess everywhere. And then they launch, and he's like, no!
I haven't even had a bite yet!
It's got this great shot of him being thrust back against the chair trying to eat something, and he's like, no! But he's not worried about the massive mess in his cockpit and just how it's going to screw up all of his electronics. He's worried that he hasn't had a chance to take a single bite of his tonkatsu. And that, my friends, that is
the tone of the entire show.
The tone of this show.
It is. It's continuous. Every episode has something way out of expectations in this regard. Okay.
So I don't think we're going to cover episode to episode, but
there's a lot of little things that happen throughout.
Yeah.
So
we'll just be talking about the stuff that we really, really liked. And this show, not only is it silly, but it's very, very much a spoof of mecha anime.
It is.
Especially the overdramatic mecha anime, which is just kind of, what mecha anime is.
Yeah, it is.
Or like very melodramatic, I want to say. And this show just rips on that so well. Like even the enemy mech suits are very, very obviously inspired by the enemy mechs in the Gundam series.
It's true.
So
it's true. But it's kind of embarrassing just how little attention he puts into the actual combat of things. There just happens to be action sequences where he's obviously really, really good at what he does to the point where he's not paying close enough attention to what he's doing at all.
Yeah, like there's the scene where I'm trying to remember what he was distracted by, but remember he was testing out the sniper rifle?
So he's been given a plasma sniper rifle, and the problem is for whatever reason, he had to leave his mech in the hands of the motherly mechanic.
That's right.
And she redecorated, putting good luck charms and focusing, and there was a little Buddha cat or whatever that thing is, a good luck cat, and there was a charm with a bell hanging from the ceiling, and there was flowered arrangements and flowery kimono things going on all over the place.
Yeah.
And the property of
his
Subaru
name is now written on his helmet, which is a running gag for the rest of the series. Like from then on, you see his name written on his helmet.
Yes.
So,
and it's just, and he's so upset that I don't know if this this is not, again, my problem is that I watched the 3 preview episodes leading up to this, and and I can't tell you whether this scene was in the first 6 episodes or in one of the 3 preview episodes, but he describes being in the cockpit like being in his mother's womb. Like it was that is
not in the first episode.
But he talks about how comfortable and how secluded and private it is in this cockpit, and it kind of carries on in the show. That like this tone that when he's in his cockpit he feels the safest because it's the one place he can be alone in a place where he has no privacy during bathing, no privacy during eating. Sometimes he has privacy because in his sleeping quart arrangements because every once in a while he gets thrown into solitary confinement.
Every once in a while it happens on an episodic basis.
Yes.
Sometimes twice in an episode. Sometimes he's done it to himself. Like, in one episode, they come and grab him because he's just pouting in solitary confinement. He has put himself in there. But anyways,
his problem is that he's 19 years old, and the guy who we talked about earlier, Vulgar, calls him honor roll
because he's their ace pilot and he was very, very good at studying in school and things like that.
But he's 19 years old in a combat situation with all of these 30-year-olds with worldly experience, and he's a 19-year-old virgin with no experience and no
And he doesn't want
skill.
He wants
tact,
nothing to do with these people. He hates it. But anyways, so he can't focus, and he can't aim this.
And so he's frustrated, and he hates just what this person did to his cockpit. It's his place. And she's
real fast. We should explain that he's supposed to be the opening attack of a surprise attack on this enemy base. He's supposed to open fire, hit this, destroy their tower, and then this second unit is going to come in and attack the base.
And he's so unfocused that he fires a massive blast that has got to be 10 stories huge. 10 stories tall in diameter, as it goes this blast, and it just barely misses the topmost antenna of this.
It looks like it's going straight forward, and then it cuts camera angles and it goes above it, and then the camera does this kind of cut zoom into it, and it's like it is like an inch or something above the top of the tower is how close he was to hitting it.
He did 0 damage. He missed completely.
Completely missed. But just barely.
Just barely.
And so the enemy then attacks him and he runs away.
Before they even get a chance to retaliate, he has to run away immediately because it was a one shot.
Yeah, it's like
he blew the one shot.
One shot to do this, and he blew it. So... But in episode 1, he showers, and he gets out of the shower because they're being attacked, and he throws his clothes on. And while he's in...
I think this was episode... I want to say this was episode 2.
This may have been episode 2.
This episode, it was called The Naked Dance in the title, and I was a little bit concerned playing this while my kids may have been walking around. Okay. I think it's episode 2, but yes, he's harassed in the shower and throws on his shirt, which you notice if you're paying close enough attention. He puts it on inside out, backwards. You can see the tag on his chest, and it reads in English, Playboy.
But anyway, he puts this shirt on, and then he's out in combat, and he's like, "What's going on? There's something wrong with my sanctuary. I can't breathe very well. What's happening? What's happening?" And then
so he calls his support, the operator that he's been assigned to. His name's Cody. Now this scene plays out in one of the preview episodes from Cody's point of view. Is that he's being told? It says, "Please help! I'm running out of oxygen. There's something wrong with my mech."
Yeah.
And
Cody's just like, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. Your oxygen's at 80%.
And now if you just watch that episode by itself, it's one thing. And it's accurate. It's that Cody is accurately saying, no, you still have 80% of your oxygen left. What actually happens from Cody's point of view is he's busy playing a video game, and he has 80% of a shield or something left. And so he's not paying full attention to what's going on. He's like, no, you've got about 80% left. You should be fine. Don't worry about it. And then he realizes that he's talking to somebody that he was supposed to be helping, and they hung up on him, or they got cut off. And so he's like, oh wait, what did I do? No, wait. His error is actually at 80%. I told him the truth.
We're good.
But he was panicking. Did I do the right thing? And he pulls out, and apparently he's working for another agent who sent him a spiral notebook of notes of things to do to help blend in.
Oh gosh.
And it's delightful, and I should have you watch these. They're pretty cool too.
I'll watch them when I get the chance, but probably not tonight.
And then he goes in and goes, if a pilot is panicking, the best thing you can do to calm them down is to tell them everything is okay. They need to hear that from a person who supposedly knows.
Who supposedly knows.
I don't know if supposedly was the word that they used, but it's like, oh, I did that too. Okay, everything's all right.
All right, everything's all right.
So he has no idea if he's screwed up and is going to end up getting him killed.
But anyway, he in that same episode, he finally realizes that his shirt is backwards, and so he tries taking this. He tries taking his shirt completely off while in combat.
He decides that he's engaging in mech-to-mech sword fighting, and figures out, okay, I'm going to do this move and then slip my left arm through. I'm going to do this move and slip my right arm through. And anybody who's worn a t-shirt ever can figure out, you can put your arms back in. But he put his t-shirt on not only backwards, but inside out. And so he decides he also needs to take it off completely and turn it back right side up. Without
taking his helmet off.
Exactly. And so now
which we've seen he can survive without his helmet inside of this cockpit pretty easily, but he's just too wrapped up in combat to take the helmet off.
And now the shirt is wrapped around his helmet. He can't get it off. He can't get it down, and he's fighting blind. Like,
still fighting really well, but he's fighting blind. And then he eventually just rips his shirt off and finishes combat, and the episode ends with him dumping...
The narrator then goes, and at that moment, something inside Subaru snapped. And so he proceeds to take off the rest of his clothes. And
just starts screaming, die, 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 die,
and then eliminates 30 bad guys in a row. Just boom, 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 boom. In a very Gundam style. Bad guys take one hit and explode kind of way.
He's saying Ochiru, which is like fall. So he's telling him to fall, but it's the same. It's like die, 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 die. And so he's killing them all. And then at the end of that episode, he
then puts his clothes back on.
Except for his torn up t-shirt, which he leaves in space. He leaves one of his favorite t-shirts in space, according to their narrative.
Every episode ends with, the day, the month, and the year of whatever future date this was, and then a major event that has allegedly happened that day. But oftentimes, it's just so ridiculous. Like
on this day, he left one of his favorite shirts in space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of all the things that happened that day, they don't mark the 30 enemies he defeated. They don't mark his success in battle. They mark that he jettisoned his shirt. His torn up shirt.
Well, and the comedy in this show works so well for me because they take themselves so seriously. It's such a silly thing for them to be doing, for them to be talking about, but every single voice actor takes it completely seriously as if they were in a regular mecha anime. Yeah. To me, that's reminiscent of Monty Python, of the Marx Brothers.
Oh yeah,
where they're saying
absurdist.
Yeah,
absurdism.
It's absurdism, where they actually, if you think like there are 6. Well, this is for another time, but there are 6 major thoughts of why comedy is funny. If you wanted to, you could dissect Monty Python and make arguments towards all 6.
Yes.
But anyway.
Yes, Monty Python delved into many different realms of comedy, but absurdism was absolutely a running theme throughout.
Did you know that they were completely memorized? They were not actors. They were fused to improv. Everything they said was written down, except for 1 or 2 things here and there.
I understand that Monty Python and the Holy Grail, actually, from the first draft, they kept 10% of the first draft of what was actually filmed.
They also, the cheese skit where he comes in.
I absolutely believe that John Cleese knows every kind of those.
Memorized every single one of those cheeses.
Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't improv. He memorized it word for word. Anyway, let's get back to our show.
And that's just it. Is that they do touring. I mean, Michael Palin and John Cleese actually tour that skit and the parrot skit.
I don't think they've toured in a while, but yeah.
They used to tour it, and then it got to the point where, they don't even have to...
The audience knew the script better than they did.
They let the audience do it sometimes, and then improv with them. And just... The only improving he really did during those tours was just the places he'd whack the bird.
Yeah. Anyway, we so let's get back to our show. So... This show then introduces its one second female character. We've got the motherly mechanic, and now we've got the walking pair of breasts. The
purple-haired girl,
Leroy or something, whatever that. They introduce her, and she comes in a very girly mech, and everybody's distracted by her because she's got an open shirt. And just like a bra, like a sports bra.
Yeah, sports bra miniskirt.
Sports bra miniskirt, long pink hair. And she, they lovingly drew, her curves.
Yes.
Anyway, but that's kind of the joke, because in this episode, nobody can take their eyes off of her chest. To where, she introduces herself to Subaru, and Subaru, is like, oh, hey, it's a woman. And, she starts saying something about how she came in on this ship, and did you not hear from my father? And she says Chi-Chi, which is a very informal way of saying father. Well, Chi-Chi is also the way that a child refers to his mother's breasts, which is why he misinterprets it the way that he does.
Oh, Japan.
Yep. But this show, I don't think they're trying, like, it's a joke. It's a massive joke. They're making fun of things like that because, like, they don't even show her face sometimes when she's talking, because when he's talking to her, he's looking at her chest, and that's all that you see as well. Okay? Yeah. And they are making fun of that fact.
Yeah.
So it's like something you'd see in one of the Naked Gun movies or something like that.
Oh, just remembering a Naked Gun.
It could very, very easily be sexist, but that's the entire point of the joke. It's making fun of stupid things like that.
I think it was a Naked Gun where they did a slow pan up a woman's leg, and it's like a very sexy leg and a knee, and then more leg, and then another knee.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's either Naked Gun or Airplane. I can't remember which one that did that. Oh, those movies. Anyway, they talk to the captain, and the captain's like, "Don't call me father, call me captain." And it turns out she's the captain's daughter.
Of course.
And the captain got this super long wizard level beard.
Yeah.
But anyways, in this episode, our main character Subaru is now suddenly in her mech instead of his.
Yeah.
They've swapped
for whatever reason, and her mech is a suggestively modeled one.
Yep, it's suggestively modeled. It's very, very womanly, and inside of it, it's all pink with frills and stuffed animals hanging from the ceilings.
And so he's deeply uncomfortable in this cockpit.
Can't stand it until finally he can't take it anymore, and he takes off his helmet, and he's able to smell her shampoo, which he smelled earlier in this episode as well. And then he suddenly realizes that, wait a minute, I'm in a girl's room.
He does something. Really, really weird.
He turns around and he hugs the chair and starts smelling it to get more of her scent.
But what does he do that causes the mech to grab itself in the chest?
He says, "I'm gonna feel some boobs." And so because he's crazy, and now he thinks he's in this girl's room, he thinks he's finally got his chance to feel some breasts. And so he takes the mech's hands and has the mech's hands go towards its own boobs, which it has because it's designed like a woman.
Apparently rocket launchers of some kind.
We don't know what they are just yet, but he's going for them. And the girl, she's like, "No, wait, Subaru, don't do that. No, what are you doing, Subaru? Stop!" And then Subaru grabs them, and there's this massive explosion, and she's just like, "Those were missiles," which is another just ridiculous cliche that if a mech has breasts, they are missiles.
It's true, and it blows them up. And Subaru only made it out of there with only minor burns.
And somehow Subaru only made it out there with minor burns. And this is when we find in the next episode, because there are 2 little bit episodes in each. Yeah,
you got 3 minutes of a bit episode in a 7-minute episode.
With like 30 seconds for the opening and 30 seconds for the closing.
If that.
But he's now in solitary confinement, and they come and they get him because he's in solitary confinement. This is when he's put himself in solitary confinement. Anyway, they come get him, and they tell him how his new mech is here, and he's like, "Wait, they made it?" I was like, "Yeah, it's a brand new mech just for you," type thing. And he's super excited about it, and they made a new Durandal or whatever it's called. And he gets super excited about it, and just as he's about to, as he's going down the hallway about it, the mechanic's like, "Here, take the manual."
Only an idiot would go flying off without the manual.
Only an idiot would go flying off without reading the manual first, and he goes in and he gets into the ship, and the ship, just as the ship's about to launch, he realizes that he was given volume 2 of the manual. He doesn't have volume 1.
And the cockpit he's in is so advanced that he's never seen a configuration like this before. And volume 2, it starts off expecting you to have already mastered volume 1. And it is not helpful at all.
And he goes out and he's just like pushing random buttons and nothing's happening because he's just been launched into space. Until he finally hits a button, transforms into a jet, and then starts flying towards an asteroid.
Yeah. Hits another button, and his screen display stops being helpful and starts being stock market on one side and a race and a marathon running race.
Yeah, some
race of some kind.
Yeah, some track and field meet or something like that. He's just watching.
And it takes up his whole screen, and now he can't see the asteroid he's coming straight for. It's like, You set off the double screen.
Yeah. Well, and then he hears the voice, and Volger says, "I bet you turned on the double screen, didn't you? I did the same thing my first time in this cockpit." And then it goes, and the girl pops in, and she says, "Oh, you need to hold down the flashing button for 3 seconds. That will turn the dual screens off." And he's like, "Wait, what?" And then they blow up the asteroids and stuff. And then he finds himself completely surrounded by the exact same model of mech. Everybody has it. It's not just for him. And so he gets depressed and refuses to leave his mech.
He curls up in the fetal position in his mech, which causes his mech to curl up in the fetal position. Just knees to chest, arms around the knees. And he's super depressed because he's no longer special. He doesn't have his special cockpit anymore. He has the same cockpit as everybody else. And that's what's depressing him.
Yeah, everybody has the same cockpit instead of having his own special cockpit.
Okay, so in one of the preview episodes that I saw, both the situation where his t-shirt was on wrong, and the situation where he's in a cockpit with all of the accoutrement that distracts him. Both of those scenes were shown from the point of view of Cody.
That's awesome. I'll have to see if I can watch those at some point. They might be on Crunchyroll somewhere, but they're not in the same order as they are in VRV. And honestly, I kind of prefer that because you were telling me about some stuff, and that just kind of spoils some of the surprises. I'd rather watch that stuff afterward.
Right.
But anyway, just so I can go ahead and see that and just see kind of the humor from the other point of view. Or what they could do is they could air one episode back to back, but then that would still kind of give things away too quickly.
Sure.
But so the next episode I want to say is the convenience is the supply ship. I don't know if it's the next episode, but it's the next bit that I remember. It's the supply ship.
We'll talk about that one.
And he's super excited because in this world, his only comfort is his cockpit. That and the supply ship when it gets here, and he jumps out of his cockpit, still in his pajamas, with his helmet on.
Yeah.
And he goes to the supply ship. And the supply ship is what?
It's a convenience store.
It's a space-bound convenience store.
With,
he goes
with,
in and
with the mini cup of Haagen-Dazs.
Is the noise that it makes when those doors open and somebody walks by. But he walks in and he just gets all this food. He's like, oh, new flavor of Haagen-Dazs. And he just grabs, and he leaves with like 10 bags worth of stuff.
Yep.
And as he's eating an ice cream cone, walking down the hallway, Volger shows up and says, hey, aren't you going a little bit crazy? We're about to go out and have another fight, or whatever they call it in this show.
Yeah, a skirmish or something.
It's not a skirmish. Yeah. It begins with an S though, but I'll just say fight. We're about to have another battle. But you shouldn't have cold food and drinks before you go out. And he's like, what am I, a child? I have self-control. You don't have to worry about me. And then it's like
cut to middle of the fight. Why is he fighting so erratically?
And then you see the mech from the outside. He was surrounded by enemies and he was fighting bravely, and he's got his sword out and he's just swinging wildly and missing every single enemy. And it cuts inside the cockpit and he's got his one arm in the mech's sword weapon controller, and he is desperately trying to hold in.
The other arm is doing a Tom Hanks. Trying to keep himself from peeing himself.
Trying to keep himself from from wetting himself. And he's just struggling so badly. And there's just this great, this scene is just so great because it keeps flashing back to him in his room eating ice cream and just like...
So he bought 2 1-liter bottles of whatever beverage, like orange juice. And it looked like a brown beverage.
I want to say, I think one's a tea and the other's like a coffee or something like that. I don't know.
But the point is, he's downing both of them at the same time. Just chug. And
he doesn't have them on his lips. He's got his mouth open as the liquid is just pouring right into his mouth, and you're seeing it from the bird's eye view.
Yeah.
And he's eating all this stuff, and he's like, why did I go on a post-payday binge and buy all that stuff and eat it right before the fight? The soiree, I think they call it. A soiree.
Yeah.
Right before the soiree,
the
sortie, whatever. Yeah. And he's trying desperately to go to the bathroom, and finally he's like, okay, here, I can't hold it anymore. Oh, wait, here's this bottle. Is this big enough? No, wait, this bag is much better. It's dual layered and everything. there's a massive hole in the bag. I can't use this. And finally, like, he gets into a clash with the enemy. And, like, he puts some paper...
He puts autopilot. Well, yeah, he jams some paper into the handle.
He jams some paper into the controls, so so it stays there, and he goes around, and he's like, I can't hold this anymore. He opens up his the cockpit to the outside behind the mech.
Yeah, the rear entrance.
And Rise is about to relieve himself. The girl's mech flies by, and he's just like, that's a comrade. I can't let them see me doing this. And so he then gets back into his ship, and then gets back into his seat, can't control himself, and he's finally like, all right, that's it. I'm halfway between here and the the supply store.
And speaking of Tom Hanks, the whole time I'm thinking about, spacesuits and Apollo 13 and how they've already solved this problem.
Yeah, they have. Well, and my mind went to, do you remember Space Above and Beyond?
Yes.
That show from the 90s? Do you remember how they're saying that, well, how do you know if your urine pouch is full? Well, that light right there is going to go ahead and flash. And in that same group of, like, these cadets who go to Mars or wherever.
The Space Marines, yeah.
Yeah, the Space Marines. I think they're still cadets at that point, but they're sent out on a mission, and they come across an alien ship, and something happens that makes them all jump, and it cuts in one of the guys. Like, you just hear this beeping, and they all turn, and one of the guys' lights is flashing yellow. Yeah, your pouch is full.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, there's actually a part in Brandon Sanderson's books, The Stormlight Archives, where Shalon is talking to Adolin. And I don't know if you know the characters. Shalon is kind of this young lady from the country, and she's engaged to... There are 10 high princes who run this country underneath the High King. And she is engaged to the heir of one of the princedoms.
Okay.
And there's this amazing armor called Shard Plate in this series, where it increases your strength and increases your resilience. It's just really, really incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Extremely expensive, if you can get it. Like, nobody makes it. They just kind of,
it's now an ancient artifact.
It's an ancient artifact.
And you have to get your hands on it. Yeah.
And she actually asks him during one of their dates what, like, they get down the conversation of battles, and you're out there for 8, 9, 10 hours sometimes, and she's just like, what happens when you have to go to the bathroom? And he's just like, you just go. you just go. And she's like, no. He's like, yes. He's like, wait, have you done it? Yes. He's like, no, yes, I, Renarin, like, what, and he lists his titles.
Out his 2 lines of titles.
Have personally shat myself in the battlefield, is what he says.
Okay, then.
And she just starts laughing, and he's like, well, I'm not the one who has to clean it, so. But anyways, yeah, like, stuff like, you don't really think about stuff like that?
It's a known factor, and they've solved the problem in space.
Yeah, they've solved the problem already, but it's still played up for massive laughs. And I'm just like, what? The entire time I was thinking, why don't they have something that just lets him pee in his suit?
That's the point of a spacesuit.
That's the point of that's one of the things that a spacesuit does.
Yeah, it's a... But anyway... But apparently, and the episode,
it's a comedy though.
He flies away from the combat.
He puts his mech into emergency mode or whatever, as it sheds all of its armor and it's now just pure movement, like pure speed, and yet he just disappears from combat.
He sees hope, and because he sees the convenience store,
because he doesn't want to go back to the ship because he doesn't want people to know that he fled combat to go to the bathroom on his ship. So he's going to the convenience store as a backup plan. And
there's a line out. There's a line 100 mech long of just individual mechs waiting to use the bathroom.
And he's just like, no, I've lost.
My last hope is gone.
And then, like, as he gets to the end of the line, the mech in front of him kind of waves and says hi, and the narrator just says, Subaru ended up buying a clean pair of underwear at the convenience store.
Oh.
Anyway.
Okay. Now let's talk about how episode 6 ended.
Okay. Yeah. Like, well, do we want to talk about what's kind of happening up to then? Or do we just want to go ahead and talk about the end of episode 6? Because it's just, I guess we just go and talk about the ending. I mean, it's just kind of been a series of just silly adventures.
Now, something you mentioned
it's
to
the
me.
Christmas episode at the beginning of episode 6.
Okay. But something you mentioned to me was that as you're looking at different actors who are involved in this on my anime list, it recommended other shows that were like this. And we've watched the 2 shows that it recommended.
2 of the 3. I don't know. I haven't heard of the 3rd one. But yeah, the other 2 shows that it's recommended are Cromartie High School and Gintama. And I adore both of those shows, and I adore this show.
It's fantastic.
Because it's just so silly, and I love unwinding to just silly things. Not like just letting it take the weight of the world off my shoulders for a little while. But anyway, so let's just go ahead and go to the end of the episode.
Okay.
He is finally fed up with the crew and everything, and so he's going to grab all of his belongings and move everything into his beloved cockpit. And he's just going to live in his cockpit from now on. He's done. And so he gets up, and it's like, this is my last time coming to the bridge. I better not make eye contact with the captain. And he walks in, and everybody's been beat up. He notices that the female officer is on the ground, the lieutenant's on the ground, the captain's unconscious on the ground. And then over there he sees Cody, or he hears the voice of Cody saying, "Oh, so you finally decided to come out of your cockpit and come to the bridge, huh?" He turns and he sees Cody, and Cody is stepping on Volger's head.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Cody, what are you doing?" And Volger's like, "You know this guy? Yeah, he's my assistant operator. He's the one who I've been communicating with this entire time. His name is Cody. We don't have anybody named Cody working on this ship.
Who have you been talking?
Who have you been talking to?" And Cody then reveals that and in a couple of flashbacks, like there's the bit where he's eating rice in space because let's not go into that one too much.
Right.
Because he's out of power, but because he is who he is, he has just a ton of rice, and he has a microwave, obviously, in his cockpit. And so he's eating microwave rice, but he sees a flashback of his mom and that and he sees his brother.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning of this episode, we also see his brother as well, and apparently his mom's passed away, and they're on their way back to home on Christmas. But Cody takes off his hat, and this entire time, like, even from the start, I knew something was up with Cody, just because you never see his eyes.
You never see his eyes. His brim's down low, and it happens to have the ship name on it. The ship is called
the Tiramisu.
The Tiramisu, which we looked this up. It's an Italian layered cake.
Yeah, it's an Italian layered chocolate cake. It's a dessert.
Yeah,
it's delicious.
Which made me look up to see whether Yamato was a special type of Japanese food of some kind. But there's a Yamato brand of restaurants, but that's about it.
Well, Tiramisu is just silly.
Yeah.
Yamato is actually a family name, but also I want to say he was a famous World War II general. Or an admiral. I think he was an admiral of their fleet. Yeah, because the Yamato cannon in StarCraft for the battlecruisers is named after him.
Right.
So I don't know if Space Battleship Yamato also is named after him, but it's a family name as opposed to a dessert.
I want to say that guy was a major character in Tora Tora Tora.
Could be, and that's a great movie, by the way. If you guys haven't seen that, if you want to see what actually happened in Pearl Harbor and not Michael Bay's awful rendition of it.
Michael Bay
Watch Tora Tora Tora.
Yeah, Michael Bay took like 30 legitimate stories and then crammed them into 2 people's lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
like, did you?
So if you take snippets from everybody's stories, it happened.
Yeah. They. Yeah.
But Tora 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 might be a bit more faithful.
It's a lot more faithful. Like, I remember, I don't know if you watched it, but I remember me giving a shout out to history buffs on YouTube, and one of his videos is comparing Tora 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 to Pearl Harbor, and Tora 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 is far more historically accurate than Pearl Harbor. So, but anyways, I mean, it's Michael Bay. What were you expecting, or what was I expecting?
Michael Bay was actually in a movie that we both love.
What movie is that?
Mystery Men.
Okay.
Do you ever? So if you watch Mystery Men and you watch the scene where there's all these different gangs of people coming to dinner hosted by
we just started. We've been leading up to this character reveal the entire time, and now we're leaving our audience in even more suspense by not even talking about it.
Yeah, but no,
because we love you guys.
That he has one line. He says, "Hey boss, can we bring the brewskis?" That's Michael Bay.
Okay,
and that's the audience he makes movies for.
Yeah,
is the can we bring the brewskis? Yeah. Jocks.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so he takes off his hat, and suddenly he's got very, very long blonde hair and a cyborg eye, and he's revealed to be Subaru's older brother. And that's where episode 2. And he tells him to. He says, "Leave this ship and join me. You hate it here. I know you hate it here. Leave this ship and join me." Yeah. And that's where the episode ends.
Yeah.
And I started watching the next episode, but then I was just like, nah, I've got a package I've got to pick up because UPS screwed up some stuff. Okay. So I went and I picked up the package and came here. So
okay. But that's the first 6 episodes. Oh, that reminds me. There was one little bit that I wanted to talk about. Is Subaru, I think it was in the middle of episode 6. It was the Christmas episode that they started. He decides he's fighting a giant spider mech, and in the middle of fighting the giant spider mech, he says, "Behold!" and he powers something up, and he's decorated his mech in Christmas lights. It says Merry Xmas on his shield. It says Eve across his belly. He's got strings of lights everywhere. And the narrator says, Subaru worked so hard to decorate his mech that he wanted to show it off to everyone he could, be they friend or foe. It's like, oh, is he not going to fire? No, he's firing at me. And so he dodges and then destroys the mech while decorating.
Here's a Christmas present. From me, or something like that as he kills it.
From whatever force he's from.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the first 6 episodes, and the 3 that you watched. Yeah. 3 extra that you watched. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
But anyway.
And by the way, it's not a cyborg eye. It's an electronic eye patch that. It's kind of like a scouter. But there's a scene where he's walking around in pajamas wearing the scouter, and it gets caught by the old lady. Mechanic.
Oh, really?
And she's like, "What's that you're wearing?" Because it's not standard issue among their own crew. So what's that you're wearing? It's like, "Oh, this I got dust in my eye, so this is an eye patch." "Oh, you poor thing. Just go to the mess hall. We keep eye drops on the shelf with the eggs." And then
what? Okay, sorry, that's just so weird to me. Oh, and
he had the exact same reaction as you did just then.
Eye drops with the eggs? Why?
I guess that's a thing they do here.
Yeah. What? Anyway,
but his pajamas are like Where's Waldo striped pajamas, head to toe with a cap.
Mm-hmm. So real fast, we should say that this show doesn't just have references to Gundam and other things. It also has references to Alien.
Yes.
Where I want to say this is episode. This might be episode. No, I think this might be episode 6 when this happened, because he's playing their version of Dragon Quest II, and he's spent apparently the last 74 hours leveling.
And he's loading up a game.
He's about to save, but just as he saves, the power in his mech goes out. And he's like, what just happened? And so he tries to load the game, but there's no data at all. It's been corrupted.
He just lost the last 74 hours
because he was too dumb to save.
Because the power to his mech had to be the power to his high-tech, super-duper state-of-the-art mech had to be diverted to her vacuum cleaner because they couldn't power both at the same time.
Well, she just unplugged his and then plugged hers in, and he was about to unplug, and she starts screaming at him, like, "Don't you dare unplug that! I'm not done yet!" And then she is wearing the power suit from Aliens.
Yeah, the power loader.
The power loader from Aliens.
A pink power loader.
It's pink and green, but it is, or I think it's more red and green, but it's the power loader from Aliens.
Yeah. And he does something to injure his face in some way.
But he gets upset at her and he starts calling her a hag and how dare you, like, because she then turns on the vacuum and starts vacuuming. He's like, "I'm almost done here." And then he gets upset at her and he's cursing her out. And then she turns it around on him and says, how dare, like, who's going to clean this? You? Do you want to clean this place up? No. So.
But he injures his face in some way, somehow, and she decides the best healing tincture for that.
He falls and she catches him with the power loader.
Yeah.
And she decides that the best way to cure his scratch is to take this smaller grabber tool, lick it a bunch, and then go towards the scar.
And so she's got a power loader arm, and then this thing that's extending out of it, and it just looks like the mini mouth coming out of the alien mouth.
It's like the mouth coming out of the alien mouth, and it's like covered in slobber and everything.
It's coming right for his face. It's like no.
And then the next scene we see, he's cleaning he's washing his face in the bathroom and stuff like that. Yeah. You can imagine why he's fed up with this crew.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, that's the first 6 episodes. What do you think?
Okay. I'm intrigued about the relationship with him and his brother because, on the one hand, the 3 preview episodes that I saw, the brother seemed reasonable and just kind of fed up with how ridiculous Subaru is. But in the opening credit sequence, which the brother has been featured in every time, he looks like a crazy psycho villain.
Yeah.
And we don't see... And you didn't see that it was him until the end of episode 6 of who they didn't reveal that.
I assumed he was the brother as soon as they started revealing the brother character. Because again, that's a very, very
because even in the flashbacks, he's wearing a hat and you don't see his face.
Yeah, he's wearing a hat, you don't see his face.
The flashback child version of the character.
But I love this show so far. Oh my gosh, it's so ridiculous.
And he's one of the reasons you wanted to see the show from the first place, because you told me last week that you saw the cover of this, and it's the 2 of them. It's Subaru and his brother fighting with these...
fighting over food inside of Subaru's cockpit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So... maybe we'll keep watching this and see where it goes.
I wonder if the bad guys are the ones that are reasonable because everybody on the Earth Force are just ridiculous. And they're all just like awful, awful caricatures and not real people.
It's so true.
They took the worst aspects of things. Like they made the woman nothing but a sex icon. They made the hardened soldier nothing but a pervert. Subaru's an ace pilot that is an absolute moron in everything else in his life. So it's I wonder if we're gonna meet more of the bad guys in the bad guy because they've done season 2.
You basically just relisted the Konosuba cast.
Yeah,
like everybody's just awful in their own special ways.
The main 4 are they're all absolutely awful in their own special way.
Yes,
they're all terrible people, every single one of them.
Oh, how I long for gender equality in our time.
Anyway, I want Konosuba season 3.
So does the rest of the world.
All right, so that's it for Space Battleship Tiramisu.
Yes.
What are we watching next week? It's your pick.
All right, so I was browsing through a handful of shows, and a clip came through on my YouTube autoplay, and I wanted to see more about this. Apparently, it's exclusive to Amazon Prime Video, and it's called Karakuri Circus. After inheriting the family fortune, 11-year-old Masaru Saiga is targeted by kidnappers armed with bizarre and deadly puppets. He escapes once, aided by circus employee Naoru Mikato, but the kidnappers soon catch up with him. Just when all seems lost, the 2 are saved by the mysterious Shirogane, who wields her own marionette. From then on, the trio's fates become inexorably intertwined.
Cool. Now, I don't remember if it was Mother's Basement or Giggik, but I remember learning a little bit about this show from a YouTube personality.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we'll watch for next week. Okay, and now that we're done with 3 episodes in, it's time for a recommendation of the week, and it's my turn this week.
It is.
And I'm going to recommend Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
What a fantastic movie.
That's what I was picking up today from FedEx. I got the Blu-ray for it.
Oh, nice!
Such a good movie. Oh my gosh,
it really is.
The music, the animation, the characters, the acting. You know what's sad is that they were actually trying to figure out a way to. Originally, they wanted both Tobey Maguire's and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man to be in it as well.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
They maybe saved it. They had to cut a bunch for this movie, but that still shows. Like, I really hope that they would be in Into the Spider-Verse 2 because they've already greenlit it. They've also greenlit Spider-Gwen. So, and do you know who the voice of Spider-Man Noir is?
Yes, I do. It's Nick Cage.
Nick Cage.
Yes.
How perfect is that?
It is brilliant. It is wonderful. Do you know who the voice of Spider-Ham is?
Yes, but the name escapes me now.
It's a stand-up comedian by the name of John Mulaney.
John Mulaney, yep.
And he has my favorite stand-up comedy bit, I think, of all time, where he talks about how he and his friend in the Salt and Pepper Diner in Chicago took a jukebox and played...
is that him?
That's him.
Oh!
The Tom Jones song, What's New Pussycat, 21 times in a row. And
could you get a man to cry by playing
and his friend's like, no, this is what we're gonna do. After 7 plays, we're going to pop in one It's Not Unusual. And we sat and we watched, and after 7 plays,
and people were like, no, it's not possible. They couldn't, and it was like only a dime per play, which is why they were doing this.
Yes. It's like a dime for 3 songs or something like that. Something cheap, but it was the best like $1.50 they ever spent or something like that. And it's just like,
is it possible to get a man to cry by listening to Tom Jones is not unusual? The answer to that is yes, if it's preceded by 7 performances of What's New Pussycat.
And then when we went back.
And then the soul crushingness of everybody when it went back to What's New Pussycat.
Wah, 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 wah. What's New Pussycat?
What's New Pussycat?
That guy, that stand-up comedian is the voice of the.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Like, so that's all, folks. Can he say that? Can he like legally say that?
Can he legally say that? Is that can he do that? But Into the Spider-Verse is incredible. If you haven't seen it, what are you doing? I mean, it's already out on Blu-ray, which means it's already out elsewhere for streaming and things like that.
It is absolutely...
Go see that movie if you haven't done it yet.
It is breathtaking. The things they had to invent to make this movie look the way it did. It's just mind-blowing. It's staggering. I want to borrow your Blu-ray just to watch the behind-the-scenes special features.
Another thing about this movie is that this movie impressed Warner Brothers so much that they have now greenlit a Batman Beyond movie.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I mean, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker is still a phenomenal movie, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing...
Warner Brothers has an incredibly successful run of animated features.
Their animated features are incredible. The Warner Brothers DC movies are phenomenal. Their live action ones leave something to be desired.
I was showing a clip to my son, which was from Justice League Dark, where John Constantine and some others are coming up to a guy's apartment and Batman is with them. And there's these invisible specters that only people who are attuned to the dark can see, and Batman can't see them. So he's like asking what's going on. But these dark specters start surrounding Batman and says, "This one has robbed us of many souls. He vexes us." And they're coming in close to him. And Batman, who can't see them, is standing completely stoically and then goes, "Boo." And they back up.
Can he see us? No, he's just guessing. Boo.
It also has one of the greatest lines I've ever heard. It's like the consciousness of a building forms the specter of a black and purple shaped humanoid, and is, kind of evaluating everybody, and then turns to Batman and says, "Your whole life is a patchwork of darkness with no light whatsoever. How do you cope?" And Batman replies, "I have a butler."
I have a butler. Who's the coolest guy in the world. Oh, Alfred's so amazing. Anyway, so that's it for recommendation of the week.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Go watch it. All right, creator shout-out. I'm giving a shout-out to somebody I know personally. Oh. She was in my graduating class at UVU. She is an amazing incredibly talented character designer and figure artist who has a robust Instagram account. Her name is Angela Talley Smith, and her Instagram profile is Angela Mermaid Smith Art. A lot of it is just doodles and brilliant stylized versions of Disney characters. They're absolutely gorgeous. Mm-hmm. She's incredibly talented. She helped work on the Cyber Dino racing game and the other the animated project. What was it called? She helped with the animation and character design in what was it called? Invalid Pin. That was it. Mm-hmm. And so she and I have worked together on those projects, and she's a very reliable, wonderful person. So reach out to her, go follow her on Instagram, commission her for something. She's great.
Okay, awesome. Good deal. Well, thanks so much for listening in this week. If you listen on YouTube, please feel free to like this episode and to subscribe to our channel. If you like what we do and want to support us, please spread the word of our podcast or even support us on Patreon. Where can they find us on social media?
Our site, whittakerweekly.com, currently has the links to our Facebook page, Twitter account, Patreon page, and YouTube channel. We encourage all our listeners to follow us on the social media platform of their preference, and if there's one we're not on yet, please reach out to us on one of the ones we've mentioned, and we'll broaden our scope to include you.
All right, well, that's it for another week. I want to go ahead and give a shout-out to Ben Coombs for providing the artwork for us.
And let's give a shout-out to Brasmataz for the music Dreikolk, which is what we use for our opening and closing song.
Okay, well, I've been Andrew.
I've been Lee.
And this has been Whittaker Weekly. You guys have a great week.